Supreme Court has announced that it will take its first serious look at the issue of marriage equality, agreeing to review two lower court rulings that separately struck down both the Federal Defense of Marriage Act and California's Proposition 8, both of which barred same-sex couples from marrying. The Supreme Court's announcement comes just days after Washington Governor Christine Gregoire formally certified the results of that state's voter referendum, which legalized same-sex marriage. Hundreds of Washington couples immediately rushed on Thursday morning to apply for marriage licenses, which come with a required 3-day waiting period for everyone under state law. So as you watch this right now, same-sex couples across the state will be slipping on wedding dresses and pinning boutonnieres to their tuxes, and for some, getting that last twinge of nervous doubt before standing at the altar and entering married life for the first time in the eyes of the law. One of those couples will be Dan Savage, founder of the It Gets Better Project and author of the syndicated sex advice column Savage Love, and his partner, Terry Miller. Dan and Terry were one of the first couples in line to apply for a marriage license in King County, Washington on Thursday. And although when this airs, Dan will be back in Washington just hours from walking down the aisle, through the magic of TV time travel, I have Dan with me here in New York right now. Dan, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations on getting future married.
Thank you. My pleasure.
It's really wonderful to have you here. I guess I got to start with your reaction to the Supreme Court granting cert on this case, because all eyes have been on this, and there's a lot of, I think, some tension and excitement in equal measure among equality activists over it.
Yeah, I'm going to date myself by saying, are we going to get Romer v. Evans, or are we going to get Lawrence v. Texas? If we get Romer v. Evans, which is the 96 Supreme Court decision upholding sodomy laws, which was, I remember that day very distinctly when that decision came down. I remember poring over the New York Times with my friends and all of us being really devastated by how bigoted that decision was. I want to reassure people that that decision and how bigoted it was kind of laid the groundwork for Lawrence. I believe that we are going to win this in the end. I hope the end comes next June with a Supreme Court decision upholding marriage equality, upholding the radical idea that gays and lesbians are entitled to equal protections under the law like everybody else. But if we lose, and we could very well lose, we haven't lost. This battle isn't over until we win. That's what we saw in Maine.
Yeah.
2 years ago in Maine, we lost at the ballot box, and a state marriage law that had been approved by the legislature, signed by the governor, was overturned by the voters, and we went back to the ballot box 2 years later, and we won. The marriage fight is over when we say it's over, and it's over when we win. And so even if we lose at the Supreme Court, there will be other Supreme Court tests and cases, because we're going to keep living, existing, coming out, marrying, and suing until we get justice.
Lawrence, of course, is the case that struck down the sodomy law in Texas as unconstitutional, as written majority.
And 13 other states. And sodomy laws that didn't just apply to gay couples alone.
Yep.
Sodomy laws that also, in I think 3 or 4 states, applied to heterosexuals, because heterosexuals indeed can commit sodomy. Basically, any sex act that isn't procreatively appropriate is considered sodomy, or used to be. We are all sodomites now.
Right. So here, we have a bottle of champagne, and the reason we have a bottle of champagne, I believe, is, well, you brought this bottle of champagne.
I did.
And this is a celebratory bottle of champagne.
It is. I'm here in New York just for 2 days, and I think the hotel heard that I was getting married, and the hotel thought that I was here with Terry for our honeymoon or something. So that was in our room, but I'm here alone, so I thought I'd bring it and share it with you.
This is wonderful, and for me, it's a rare opportunity to consume champagne on set, which I generally don't do from 8 to 10 a.m.
But thanks to the Maritime Hotel in Chelsea for this. Appreciate it.
So you're gonna be getting married. Now, you are already married, right?
Terry and I married in Canada on our 10th anniversary, but we are getting remarried, or renewing our vows with a license. Washington State, it asks if you're married to anyone else. It doesn't ask if you've ever been married before. So we're not breaking the law by obtaining a second marriage license and renewing our vows. Terry and I both fought really hard with everyone else in Washington to get this law passed, and we wanted to be a part of this day. And at our first wedding, we didn't have any guests. We didn't have any friends there. We kind of snuck off to Canada alone and eloped and married, and then went to our 10th anniversary party without telling anyone at our 10th anniversary party that they were actually at a wedding reception, but Terry and I were the only people who knew it. So we're doing it a bit more, rolling it out a bit more publicly this time and inviting a family.
You've written about this quite a bit, but the thinking about your conception of what marriage is and why it's important to you, and why, just from a personal level, not here. Cheers, by the way, to all the other couples out there.
To all the couples in Washington State who are marrying this weekend, and to the couples in Maine and Maryland who will soon be marrying, congratulations.
Personally and also politically, what was the thinking process or discussion process even with Terry about wanting to do it?
Well, years ago when we first started contemplating marriage, I came out in 1981, which was a difficult time to come out as a teenager to your Catholic parents, right into the AIDS buzzsaw, and also right into the Reagan administration, flying into those headwinds. It was hard. Telling your parents you were gay, your Catholic parents you were gay in 1981, meant telling them that you would never marry, you would never have children, you would never be a Marine. And here we are just in the course of my adult life, and I am married. Terry and I have a child that we adopted at birth together and have raised. He's almost 15. And now we can be Marines. Not that we want to the relief of the U.S. and the United States Marine Corps. But for a lot of gays and lesbians, I think right at my age and older, marriage was the trap that you could fall into before you came out. If you didn't come out by the time you were 18 or 20 when your family was pressuring you to marry, you would get married and then you could never come out without, So for a lot of older gays and lesbians, myself included, it was sort of like marriage wasn't something you thought about, and then all of a sudden you had to think about it and assess what marriage meant. And I know a lot of thoughtful straight people who have those same sort of reservations, hesitations about marriage, and they think about what marriage means and how they could enter the institution on their own terms. And so we didn't rush in. We really debated. Hilariously, Terry said to my mother, which was a mistake, when she was saying we should get married, that he didn't want to act like straight people, and we already had a child together. And my mother was like, "You can't act more straight than that."
That's basically definitionally there.
Right. We had adopted, like we were bringing a kid up together, but we eventually came around to, as I think not just gays and lesbians have, but so many people in the culture, to the importance of marriage. And one of the most important rights in marriage, it's hugely important, particularly a lot of lesbians and gays who may have families unlike mine that are hostile, is when you marry, you declare your next of kin. You get to choose. Very empowering to say, this person is my next of kin, not my parents, not my siblings, not my distant cousins, who may still be alive if I have no immediate surviving family members, but this person that I have chosen makes medical decisions for me, is the first person the doctors turn to in a crisis, is my most immediate family member. And to have that right, particularly as a gay person, is hugely important.
I want to talk about the remarkable shift in public opinion that's brought us to this morning, and why it's happened and where we go from here right after we take a quick break.